Hi, welcome to Cherie's Weight Loss Journey. Okay, so my goodness, the banana muffins that I made last night was chef's kiss. I'm telling you, no sugar rush, just fulfillment and energy. I'm serious. I am. It sounds funny to say it like that, but that's exactly how it felt. And so yeah, it was tasty enough to be nutritious, and just sweet enough to tantalize my taste buds. Okay? So yeah. And then last night I also cooked some pork chops. I ain't had pork chops in a minute. So that was good. It's good. I didn't do the usual. I did not. Where you bread it all up and you smother it with gravy. I didn't do all of that. Nah, I didn't. Just simple. A little bit of butter, a little bit of olive oil, some seasoning. Boom, that's it. Okay? And it was very good. I still have like 1.5 left over to eat. And they will be eaten. Right? I'll probably eat that along with the last of the pea salad. Okay? And then a little while ago, I went ahead and had my protein shake mixed with the fennel, the drops of soy milk, and the collagen, the creatine, and the fiber. So at least I know I got the minimum of those things, right? I don't do the maximum. I don't even necessarily do the recommended amount. But as long as I get a minimum, I know I'm going to be all right. Okay? I'm wondering if they got some kind of sale on aluminum siding. Now, speaking of houses, right? Finally, my tribe called me back today. They said, excuse me, our receptionist, she left and we had no access to how to get to the messages. And I'm like, oh, well, thank God, you were able to get in there and call me back. Because I was thinking I was forgotten and left behind. So, she resent me another application. She advised me, rather than, working on trying to complete the other application, that the housing list only lasts for a year, and then you have to re-up it every year. Okay? So I got my application, and we're able to do this through email, which is great. And then and I did learn something that I can learn, that 365 Microsoft can convert a document into a DocuSign. Like, what? concepts are really not hard, to understand. It's just that when you're not familiar with the apps, that say are available to the common person, right? When we're at the job and, we familiarize ourselves with our company's, software, boom, right? But when it comes to having to actually select the proper app, right? Or, get confused because you get bombarded with, apps that you have to pay for. And there are apps out there that you can use for free, especially since, you're only trying to, use it once or twice or just a few times. There's no reason for you to buy access to the app if you only want to, lease it for a couple of minutes, right? So that could be very confusing to people that aren't aware of the different apps that are out there. Now, thankfully, AI, can make suggestions for you. Thank God. Because before you had to ask somebody. You had to ask somebody that knows. Or you had to know somebody that knows somebody. And it was just really, really weird the way, we all got manipulated. So anyway, I'm saying that to say that now I can go ahead and complete my part of, my safety net exit plan, right? Because I don't plan to be in this same situation this time next year. Now, I'm going to hold on to this situation for as long as possible. Don't get it twisted. But this time next year, I'm going to have a whole different plan. Because, like I said, I have enjoyed living my isolated life here in Texas, and it has been isolating. Okay? It's the South, right? The South are pretty much, they say they're not racist, they say they're not prejudiced, but they are, and, it just seems like the interaction that they do have with other races is one of tolerance. And if you ever push them beyond their boundaries of tolerance, you will definitely feel their wrath as if you were an enemy. They will behave towards you like no one else. And during these 30 years that I've been here, it has been a very delicate situation to try to explain to them that no, you don't need 40 acres of land that you can't maintain, and then you want to enslave people to work your land just so that you can keep your land. Come on now. And then you have to even ask him, why do you need so much privacy that you don't want to see a single house from the windows of your porch? Why? What are you hiding? When we out here sitting up here living in these cracker boxes infested with bugs and rats that, is full of disease and is killing us. right? And that was the kind of conversation, that was type of, vibration that had to be sent out to these people. Like, look, we know you slaughtered a lot of Indians to get this land. We know that. And some of y'all died in the process. We know that too. And yes, you got the spoils. And you kept the spoils for a long time. But are you going to keep doing that? How long do you think that's going to be able to? How long do you think you're going to be able to keep doing that? Right? Because you came across the seas to the land of milk and honey because you were oppressed in your land where you were at, and then you came here and turned around and reinstated the same laws, the same oppression that you ran away from. This is what you really have to understand, right? This should be the clue that even though you said, you were rebelling against the system, you weren't rebelling against the system. You just wanted to be on top of the system. You wanted to be the one reaping all of the benefits of these former systems. If I'm lying, just say so in the comments and tell me why I'm lying. Because that's the main reason why, even when it comes to EEO, right? Even when it comes to EEO, equal employment opportunity, you think it's fair to say, oh, I can't live in that neighborhood. That neighborhood plays too much loud music, or those people, they don't have the same values, and they're not peaceful, and I'm afraid for my life if I have to go and live in that demographic. And then you tell each other that, and you all will confirm to one another, I understand. But we're going to see how we can help you out so you can stay on the north side and the west side, where we mostly populate the demographics. Now, I'm not saying all of this because I hate you. No. I love white people. I love my white descendants. I love the white bloodline that, runs through my veins. I love the color of your eyes. I love the color of your hair. I love the way you think most of the time. Most of the time I do. But on those occasions, I don't. Okay? On those other occasions, I don't. I don't like that part. And you've been doing it long enough where it's not just a behavior anymore. It's a character flaw. How does Dr. Phil say? It's a character flaw. It's not acceptable. And even right now, with our poor economy, you don't think it's wrong to say, hey, I'll work overtime. You don't need to hire nobody else. It sounds innocent enough, doesn't it? To you. To you, it sounds innocent. But to the company, they should be thinking, no. Why would I pay you overtime when I can employ another person who has a family to feed and share the wealth? That's the innocence that you're hiding, is that you don't care about sharing the wealth. You only care that you don't have to lose your status because the economy is bad. And that's what you guys had did during the pandemic. Y'all were working 80 hours a week, hoarding the money, making stipulations that, oh no, you can't work unless, you get vaccinated 1, 2, 3, and 4, whatever it takes. Right? If somebody gets if somebody catches COVID, you didn't give them a leave of absence. You wanted to replace them with family, or at least somebody you consider to be family. So that's what I've been talking about. I've been talking about, when, you want to say, well, the world is not fair, but then, when you get treated with standards and regulations, you try to say that that's not fair. And the standards and regulations are the things that you had created your own self. But you gave yourself immunity. And y'all shot yourself in the foot when you wouldn't even give your president of the United States immunity. So there's no way anybody underneath the president can justifiably state that they have immunity. I'm so thankful that y'all did that. So I love this location right here. It gets this beautiful breeze off of the water, but this one spot seems to be pretty occupied. So I'm gonna move along. Because they came here first. I'm gonna find me another spot. I'm gonna find me another cooling off spot. Because this is the third day in a row I came here. And I'm starting to see that I like that energy that's right there. Now, I could try to see if I could do a DoorDash or two. I could. I might. It's only 88 degrees outside. But it's hot. It is very hot. And here's the thing. If I had about $400 more a month, right, I could probably survive. I could probably survive this next year without panicking, right? And $400 a month, really doesn't sound like much, because it's really not. But it makes all the difference in the world when you're forced to take early retirement. One of the things that I had to ask this woman, I said, look, I've been filling out forms and paperwork about disability, right? And, and some of the forms that I was coming across, had stated that, if, you have cancer or have in the past had cancer, then you check that, yes, you have disabilities. And, she had to go to her, her eligibility, and then she's seen, I know I enlightened her. She's seen, oh yes, and then she even seen this, you could be diabetic, and that diabetes would be a form of disability, and it is, right? But somehow, we just sort of made an interpretation, the common people made an interpretation that it was just a liability. Well, that liability is a disability. It is an impairment, right? Because, like I said in my previous videos, I had thyroid cancer. Thankfully, we cut it out. I got radiation. I had to go and be supervised for at least four years, and then, be on medication every day and have my, my blood work monitored. But, I could never understand why that wasn't considered a disability, because once the imbalance happens, I could suffer Crohn's disease, I could suffer fibromyalgia, I could have tiredness, the tiredness could bring on depression, and it could just snowball. And yet, because I was a minority, my infirmities were not seen as a disability, just a liability. And I'm like, my goodness, this would never happen in the white community. It wouldn't happen, right? White community, they could get, on disability because they have they're depressed. Like, how is it that they're depressed and they can get on disability, right? How is it that they have diabetes and they could get on disability? How is it that they have bipolar and they could get on disability, right? How is it that they have diseases that we know nothing of, right? Because let's face it, the diseases are based off of an interpretation of symptoms. that get dictated by a doctor that says that you may have bouts where you're not able to perform. In a normal or regular capacity. Right? So, and we will see this happening in our society where, that thought process that says, oh, they're black, they have muscles, they could be out in the sun because of their melanin in their skin. Therefore, they're the ones that should be put out in the fields. And this mentality is global. It's not just America. Right? But on the opposite side of that coin, these same, white-skinned people can say, I'm white, I can't tolerate the heat. I could have a heat stroke. Don't put me out in the sun, and yet, boom, they will get that consideration. As a medical concern. But then if they want a piece of land, and the only piece of land available is in Texas, where the temperatures get hot to 110 and 115 degrees for the whole length of summertime, and they seem to live through that. What? Or Germans, they're able to live in South Africa for centuries. And even though, they made minorities jump through hoops just to try to go to their schools, and if they go abroad to try to get an education that's more affordable, where they can live and get an education, because they take all of the grants, right? My daughter was definitely, grant qualified, and she never got a grant, right? The majority of grants that they give to, the minorities, or just give them the low income grants, even though you can qualify for many grants, and I talked about that, a little bit, when I was talking about, some of our first ladies. And I guess part of the reason why that even came up in my mind is because I seen another woman who has a degree. She has student loans, but her and her 2 children are on food stamps. And so this is what I mean is, when we had, this global arrest and a cease of 2020 with the pandemic threatening to wipe out humanity, right? And it was supposed to just be, okay, well, we still need to have the essential workers working. And it was like, yeah, but even then, y'all was hoarding the jobs. Y'all was hoarding the work. Y'all was sitting up there, like you said, working 80 hours a week for months. Right? And nurses and hospital workers, they were getting laid off. You did that. You did that. And you didn't think nothing was wrong with that. You didn't think nothing was wrong with that until, the 6th month, and you were like, I need time to be alone with my kids. I need my, because your family was breaking up. Your family was telling you, what the hell are you doing? And you were like, I'm trying to get that money. Everybody else out here, they're all falling, they're falling, this, that, and the third. It's like, yeah, your family was going to leave your ass because your family knew what you was doing. You was hoarding. You was hoarding the resources.